So one of the things we hear a lot about right now in the youth sports space is overtraining, overplaying, overuse injuries. So as someone who's in the field, and we're talking about this, let's say 10 to 15-year-old range right now where they're growing into their adult bodies, what are the common issues or injuries you're seeing in that age of athlete? And is it overuse that's causing it, or is it something else?
No, it's a great question. I think it's like many things, it's multifactorial. And what we'll see is there is an element of overuse, and it can be that you're just doing too much of whatever that specific sport is, whether it's a throwing athlete and they're just throwing too much. It could be running too much. It can be any repetitive sport that you're doing, and the impact of that particular sport on the growth, where the tendons attach to the bones or where the growth plates themselves are. It can be really there can be a huge impact. And so I think it's really balancing it. What we've really done is, and it's there's no cookie cutter way to apply it. It's not at a certain age that all kids are a certain way. It really is specific. And what we've been sort of focusing on is this idea that we'd like to do a functional assessment on kids. And you think about, you see somebody, like, oh well, they have whatever limited mobility or limited flexibility, and you think, well, that happens when you get older. But when we screen kids, we see it happening in kids that are really quite young, and again, very disparate from kid to kid. And so I think what we try to do or think about is to look at each kid and evaluate them in a functional way that can assess their strength and mobility, and then create a pathway or plan for them to address areas where they have opportunity. And so every kid, throwing the same number of pitches isn't going to have the same response, because maybe they have limited mobility or they're using certain muscle groups to overpower areas that are weaker, and then that predisposes them to an overuse injury. So it's this really multifactorial number of events that are contributing to this overuse. And then some of it is just no break from a specific sport or a specific action. I mean, you got to have time to recover, and again, that changes from athlete to athlete. So it is multifactorial.